Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and you guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and one of my subscribers has awared me of a video by Alpha M, also known as Aaron, in which he discussed some tips for losing more body fat while you sleep. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of speechcraft and let's talk about this. Now, there were some problems with the video. There were some good things said and some bad things said. Aaron is always one of those mixed bags. He's one of those guys that I'll be critical of when he comes and puts out training information that's bad, but he also says some stuff that's good, and when he does, I will give him props. In fact, his last video that I covered, his one about getting stronger in the big three in squats and deadlifts, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a great video, and I endorsed it, right? And I said, you know what, Aaron, you did really good here. This one, he said some stuff that's beneficial and useful, but he didn't get the science right. He got some stuff wrong, and there was some gimmicky stuff in there that's just not true. And part of what he did a before and after. Like he weighed one morning, then slept and lost 8 pounds of water weight overnight, and then showed himself the next day with a side-by-side. Now, the reality is for me, someone who's been around lifting and training and strength sports and everything for a very, very, very long time, same age range as Aaron, he didn't lose any body fat. In fact, he looked smaller. And again, I'm someone who does weight cuts. I know how to cut water. You guys have seen me cut like 18 pounds inside of a week for powerlifting meets before, right? You guys have seen me do 18-pound water cuts. He did a small water cut, and everything that he dropped was intramuscular water. So if you notice, one of the big problems is that he's kind of doing the before and after, and he knows it was mostly water, and he admitted that. He said, but it's some fat, but you don't lose any body fat in one day. You can't lose a measurable amount of body fat in one day. People have this misconception that it's like even biologically possible to lose a pound of fat in 24 hours. It is biologically, scientifically impossible. Okay? I want that to be clear. If you're an extremely fat, morbidly obese person, you might be able to lose half a pound of fat per day. But if you're even remotely lean, you're going to be like maybe an ounce, maybe 2 ounces, maybe 3, depending on how lean you are, is your absolute best case. Like, you're not going to lose pounds of fat. Nobody loses a pound of fat in a day. All right, that just doesn't happen. It's not within the realm of human biology. Other than liposuction, now you could suck it out, you could cut it off, you could have wound trauma, like you could physically have it removed. You can't burn it. There's actual formulas for this of showing how much body fat your body is physically capable of liberating based upon how much you have on your body. That's a whole different topic. So what he did is he dropped water. You could tell it was all intermuscular. His pecs and everything looked half the size that they were before, right? It was all intermuscular water. Now, the point we need to get to is some of that. He also threw out a bad thing about the scale. Digital scales like that don't work. Body analyzing scales don't work. I have a $20 scale from Amazon. When I have used it the morning of my DEXA scans, it has been very consistent. I did 3 DEXA scans last year. The DEXA scan measured me at 0.2 pounds lighter than my digital scale did every single time when I went in, right? So my digital scale is off by 0.2 compared to, a $50,000 machine. 0.2 pounds, okay? That's fine. The analyzer scales do not work. They're not based on science. I don't care what reviews they get. I don't care what a person says of how wonderful they think it is. There is no scientific basis for these scales. Bioimpedance and things like that do not work. All right, they do not work. They're not based on real science. They're not based on anything that can be measured, and the whole concept of it has been debunked by researchers for years. It's complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. It doesn't work. All right, a scale can tell you how much you weigh. That's it. That's all that scale can tell you. If you're paying for more than an accurate weight, you're getting ripped off. Now, over to the point. He said the things that do seem to help with losing fat while sleeping. Some of it's going to be counterintuitive, but there is research on it. And he's misinterpreting the metabolism research. The metabolism research of it comes back to the point he made about lifting weights. Lifting weights increases your metabolism dramatically. Dramatically, like to the point where when people ask me, like, what's my maintenance calories? Because me, I weigh 218. For me to stay at 218 pounds, I have to eat 3,600 calories every single day. That's a lot of food. That's just what I need to maintain. And if I go under that, obviously I'll lose weight. And I'm like, why don't you do that and get ripped? Because I'm not trying to get ripped. I want to stay in the weight class I'm in. But that's what I'm required to eat in order to do it. So, lifting weights. But we come over to the other thing. You talked about sleep itself. So how's that tied to metabolism? Well, it's tied to number one, appetite. It's tied to energy. It's tied to diet adherence. People who don't sleep as much, they tend to eat more. Now, you don't ever take self-reported data. That's the problem. It's like when people do self-reported data and it affects weight loss outside of it, calories in, calories out, you know that something in there caused them to overeat, meaning it caused them to misreport. In nutrition research, self-reported data is considered to be garbage. The only thing self-reported data is useful for is determining if people are overeating or not and not counting it. Because you can look at their other factors and say, aha, something's causing them to eat more and lose track of their food. That's what self-reported data is useful for. It's not actually useful for determining real changes in fat loss, for determining overeating and people losing track of calories. So what you find in those sort of studies, though, less sleep leads to, again, elevated cortisol, lower energy. You tend to overeat more because you're more stressed. You lose track of your food easier, and it's harder to lose body fat. Number two, as he did point out, and he was correct, you lose more muscle mass when you sleep less. You're recovering less from training. You're spending less time growing. You gain most of the muscle that you're going to gain when you're sleeping at night. So if you're sleeping less and you're creating an environment where you're not recovering and not growing as much, you're going to lose muscle easier on the same amount of calorie deficit. And if you're losing muscle easier, well, that's less fat you're losing. I mean, if you lose a pound of muscle, that's an entire pound of fat you didn't lose, right? And your metabolism just went down. That's not good. So, I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, of course, more sleep is going to equal better fat loss because you retain muscle better. You're losing fat instead of muscle. Well, yeah, that's really useful for losing fat because muscle is useful for burning fat, which comes over to his point about lifting weights. Yeah. Same thing when we talk about the cold room. Actually, it's cold, dark rooms. All your research shows what? Sleeping in a cold, dark room produces higher quality sleep. What's higher quality sleep equal? Better recovery, better restoration. So if you're recovering better, you're going to be able to train harder, you're going to move more. It doesn't increase your metabolism, it increases your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's what actually gets increased. In other words, you're going to move around more because you're going to feel better. You're going to be more rested. You're going to be more active. Also, you're going to have better appetite control. Stress and elevated cortisol can cause more fluctuations in blood sugar, which makes us overeat more. Right? No, that's a problem. That is a problem. So when you look at all of that, he's essentially right. I mean, if you want to keep your energy turnover as high as possible, yeah, lift weights, gain muscle. Absolutely. Get better sleep, more sleep, and higher quality sleep. Absolutely. I'm going to agree with those points. He's absolutely accurate. One of the things that he talked about, though, was, again, dropping water weight. And this is like a big misconception out of the bodybuilding world. And I guess the difference here is, for me, the only reason this is a nuanced topic for me, I am an actual athlete who follows a low-carb diet. And I don't do carb ups. I don't lose water weight on the low carbs. All right, and that's kind of one of the points we come over to. I know it's a bodybuilder trick, but bodybuilders are intentionally losing water on it. You don't automatically lose water weight or muscle glycogen when you're keto adapted or you go on a keto diet. Usually, like if you drop 4 pounds of water weight overnight on a low-carb diet, that's actually an electrolyte issue, meaning that's actually a sign that you're not consuming enough sodium, potassium, and or magnesium. And if that happens, guess what? You are losing intramuscular water. That's also going to affect your performance. That's going to affect your ability to gain muscle. It's going to affect your ability to train. It's going to affect your strength. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. And generally, like for me, if I've been eating carbs and I switch back over and do what I'm doing now, I only fluctuate about a pound. And that's perfectly normal. Perfectly normal for people who actually really do lower carb diets. So people need to remember the difference there is that when you do a quick carb depletion like he's talking about and you cut salts back, that's what's causing it. It's the lower carb is not necessarily the loss of muscle glycogen, because most of you aren't training enough to burn off enough muscle glycogen to lose 2 pounds overnight. I can assure you, most of you are not putting in that sort of workload. And even if you were used to low carbs, you still wouldn't burn it off. You would just replenish it off your other food, off your protein and everything else. That's another topic completely. The point we come over to with that is that is basically pissing salt out is what you are doing. It's not necessarily glycogen loss. It is a shift in your aldosterone from the sudden shift in carbohydrate intake. And what's happening is that you are excreting large amounts of sodium and potassium, which take water with them. All right, that's not necessarily a good thing. And he could say, well, it'll make you look better. Well, no, it can make you look really flat too. Make you look really flat, which is what happened with him. I mean, he looked smaller in that after, right? His chest and everything just shrunk down. He lost intramuscular water. Well, again, from a performance perspective, that's not a good thing. I understand the concept if you're trying to make weight for something, but it doesn't even really make you guys look better, because you guys want to look better after a water cut. Isn't the point to look full? Have big full looking muscles, not to have flat muscles. Like for me, when I do water cuts, people are shocked at how much even worse I look. And I don't know, I'm a power lifter. I don't normally look fantastic anyways. But when I've done water cuts and then I have my shirt off during that water cut, people are like horrified. They're like, oh my God, what happened to you? It turns into memes and stuff, like the flesh column memes, like you just melted. Well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. So it's not something you would do for aesthetic purposes. It's not a good idea because he didn't look better in the after. He looked better in the before, right? He looked bigger. So you need to understand that stuff like that, to where you do it and then you cut salts with it, which is the only way it works. If you load salts back up correctly, which is what you should be doing on low carbs for performance purposes, then you don't actually drop that water weight. And the reason you drop the water is because, again, you're excreting more electrolytes. That's what plants crave. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.